Okay, let's dive into this. We all know AI is just incredibly powerful, right? But there's this huge looming question. What about our private data? How do we actually use these amazing tools without putting our most sensitive information at risk?
And look, this isn't just some theoretical thing. This is a real, live question being asked right now by the people building the stuff we use every single day. You go on Reddit, and you'll see founders and developers literally asking each other how they're handling PII, that's personally identifiable information, before it ever gets close to a big AI model.
And you gotta understand the stakes here are they're as high as they get. We're not talking about your favorite pizza topping. We're talking about legally binding contracts, confidential employee files, the company financials, even things like your private journal or secret research notes. A leak isn't just bad, it's a complete non-starter. So what's the fix? How are people actually solving this? Well, let's get into the solutions coming straight from the trenches. These are the real-world, practical fixes that developers are building on the front lines. Okay, check this out. One developer laid out this brilliant 4-step process they use. First, on their own server, they strip out all the obvious private info. Then, and this is clever, they replace it with stable placeholders so the app can pop the real info back in later on their end. They also split the prompts, so the big AI only gets the generic safe part of the question. But here's the absolute most critical part. They only log the redacted, sanitized version. Because if you log the raw data, well, you've just defeated the whole purpose, right? Now, here's another, even more high-tech approach. A different team actually built a small, specialized AI model that acts like a surgical guardrail. Its one and only job is to find and cut out private information right at the edge before anything gets sent to a bigger outside AI. It's way faster and smarter than just using a simple checklist of words to block. So, these are great solutions for cleaning data before you send it out, but that leads to an even bigger question, doesn't it? What if you're thinking, I don't want to send my data to any outside service, no matter how clean it is? What if you want total, absolute control? Well, that line of thinking takes us to the ultimate solution for privacy, taking your AI completely in-house. This is the path to what's called data sovereignty, where nothing, and I mean nothing, ever leaves your own machine.
And you know what? This is way more accessible than you might think. With free open source tools, you can actually build your own private AI right now. A tool called Ollama acts as the engine to run the models on your computer. OpenWebUI gives you that familiar chat interface just like you're used to, but in your own browser. And then a special model like Nomic Embed Text lets the AI read and understand your own private documents all locally.
So what's the end game here? You get a system where you can ask detailed questions about your most confidential files, and not one single byte of that data ever goes to the cloud. It never leaves your network. For complete peace of mind, this is the gold standard. So that's the awesome do-it-yourself approach. But how does this scale? What happens when you're a big organization? Let's take a look at how enterprises are tackling this exact same problem, because they need solutions that are robust and ready to go. For big businesses, it pretty much boils down to two main models. You've got your private SaaS solutions, which are super fast and convenient. They're plug and play, someone else manages the hardware, and you're up and running in minutes. Then you have the on-premise deployment. This gives you complete control, full data ownership, and you can even air-gap it, which means physically disconnecting it from the public internet for maximum security. But here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just about the tech. There's a huge legal layer. A lot of companies rely on zero data retention contracts. These are legally binding agreements that force the AI provider to promise, on paper, that your inputs and outputs are never stored, your data is never used to train their models, and nothing you type is ever logged. It's a contractual firewall. And all of this ties back to that key concept we mentioned earlier, data sovereignty. Simply put, it's the idea that your data is subject to the laws of the country where it's collected. So, in practice, that means you have to keep your data in a controlled environment, whether that's your own server room or a private cloud in your specific region, to make sure you're following all the local privacy rules. So we've got technical tricks like redaction, we've got architectural choices like running things locally, we've got legal protections like zero data retention contracts. So we're good, right? Is the problem completely solved? Not quite. There is one more critical layer to this whole thing, the human co-pilot. And this is where we shift from just technology to actual operational discipline. See, real AI oversight isn't just a feature you flip on. It's a skill you have to practice. And there are basically two main models for this. Human in the loop
means the AI has to stop and wait for a person to approve an action before it happens. Think of it like a system that wants to approve $1 million transfer. It's going to pause and wait for a human to say yes. Then there's human on the loop, where the AI acts on its own, like filtering spam, but a human is watching and can step in and make corrections if it messes up.
This quote just nails the problem perfectly. It's not enough to just assign someone to watch the AI. As one expert said, you don't learn to land a plane during a storm, you learn in a simulator. The people in charge of overseeing these powerful systems need to practice making tough calls before a real crisis happens. Because if you don't practice, this really dangerous psychological trap kicks in, and it's called automation complacency. It's that tendency we all have to overtrust a system that works well most of the time. We stop paying close attention, we stop questioning it, and then we completely miss the critical error when it finally happens. So, the crucial point here is that securing AI isn't about finding one single magic bullet. Real safety comes from a multi-layered, defense-in-depth strategy. You need the technical layer with things like redaction, you need the architectural layer, like deciding to deploy locally, you need the legal layer with those zero retention contracts, and finally, you need the human layer, practice, disciplined oversight. And this really hammers home the final takeaway. Securing AI is not just a technical challenge you can solve with code. It is an operational discipline, a whole system that combines tech, policy, and human skill. Which leaves us with one last really critical question we all have to ask ourselves. For the tools we use and the systems we build, is our AI oversight a real practice discipline, or is it just a liability dressed up as a process, just waiting for the first big storm to fail?